uh, fixing my actually the place. I have a wedding right next door today, so there is a lot of disturbance in. Uh, there is actually a lot of background noise, so I just wanted to make sure that whenever I start, there is no background noise, and that was actually one thing which took me a while. So sorry for that. Welcome everyone once again for the weekly live stream. My name is Prithvi, and we discuss startups and entrepreneurship in this weekly live stream that we do at Friday 8 o'clock. And I hope everyone is doing good. I hope everyone had a good week, and I hope you have good plans for your weekend. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Maybe I'll just maybe want to have a few people start. I mean, have a few people join this live stream. Have a few people maybe ask the questions before I start taking them and before we start discussing like we do every week. And yes, I mean, so maybe if I can just have at least a couple of people telling me if they can see me well and if they can hear me well. So anyone, maybe just at least a couple of people, if you can just tell me if I am audible and visible, and then we can start with the. Okay, thank you, Tejas. Maybe one more. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, everyone. So yes, that like I said, thank you everyone for joining in this live stream. Before we begin, before we start, I kind of want to have a couple of announcements. One, we actually started our first ever newsletter last week, and that newsletter goes out every single week on Saturday, and Varun has been working well on that. Varun is also moderating the chat today, so everyone please say hi to Varun in the chat box before I starting the questions. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our newsletter, this is something that if you really want to have all the latest news and updates from the Indian startup ecosystem right in your email inbox. So that's the newsletter to subscribe. So if you haven't subscribed, Varun, please leave the link for to that newsletter in the comment section so that everyone can sort of have access if anyone has not subscribed to the newsletter yet. So uh, okay, so I think, yeah, we are done with the formalities. Hi, Varun from Varun. Okay, so I think we are done with the formalities. I do have a few. Uh, okay, so before I start, okay, we do have a Hindi channel as well. That is also a little bit of an announcement. Like, not a lot of people know that. Abrar is asking, why don't I come live on my Hindi YouTube channel? So, Abrar, I sort of had this plan right from day one when we started the Hindi channel that I will start doing a weekly live, the day we hit 5,000 subscribers on Hindi. So we are somewhere around 3,000 right now. It might be a while, it might be a couple of weeks, it might be a month before we hit 5,000. But the day we hit 5,000, I will be active on the Hindi channel. I'll be doing a live every single week on Hindi channel, just like I do that on English channel. So if you haven't subscribed to our Hindi channel yet, please go and subscribe to our Hindi channel. Please, we need your support there. And yeah. Uh, that's it. Like just like I said, we will start discussing startups and entrepreneurship in Hindi as well once we do 5,000 subscribers on that. So that's it. I think I should start taking questions now. Also, guys, just like I said, I do have a lot of background noise in my neighborhood today. There is a wedding and there is a lot of loud music. So I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to sort of limit this live to strictly 1 hour. So I'll only be taking questions sent to me by 8:30, or maybe just depending on how we are doing on the time. I'm trying to do it, trying to keep it a strict 1 hour live. So I'll only be considering till 8:30. Might be 2-3 minutes up or down, but try to send all the questions before 8:30 so that uh, we do not overstep on the timing. Also, like, if you have please do not spam, please do not repeat your questions. If there is something worth answering, if this is something related to startups and entrepreneurship, I'll take every single question. I will not miss anyone if your question is relevant, if your question is related to startups and entrepreneurship. So please keep that in mind. Let me start taking questions. I've already spoken for 5 minutes without taking any questions as well. So okay. um, Yep, I think the first question is, hey, I have a startup idea from Varun that largely concerns YouTubers to discuss with you. Please tell me how to connect. That's great, Varun. So please get in touch with us at backstagewithmillionaires@gmail.com. The name of this YouTube channel @gmail.com. That'll be the best place for us to connect. And yeah, let's see what do you have for us. What are your thoughts about India banning cryptocurrency? So, Rigpod Gaming again. My thoughts about it, just like I kept on saying, like cryptocurrencies basically give us an amazing way of making payments. It basically gives a complete new dimension to money. It completely, gives a complete new dimension to the financial world. But the only thing is, it is untraceable. And being a country like India, being the kind of neighbors we have, the kind of history we have had, the kind of relations that we have with our neighbors and a lot of other countries, there was a lot of big, there was actually a big security threat. Like if India legalizes, if India basically starts supporting these cryptocurrencies which are untraceable, so I think the biggest thing was the security threat, and that is one thing that can never be ignored by the government. So I again, like that there might be uh, well, we might still be in the very very beginning stages of cryptocurrencies. We might see a lot of these advancements happening in the due course of time, but till then I think for now it was a sensible move. And let's see how things go. Sir, how can I develop my business mindset? Jimmy World, you do not develop your business mindset. The only thing you do is basically like uh, developing a business mindset is like it's business. People are not born. They basically it completely depends on the way you look at things. Only one thing that I can really suggest you is try to look for the solutions instead of problems. Try to find like a business opportunity, or trying to find those kind of solutions, like whatever the kind of problems which are around you. The or like again, there is I don't know if you are really comparing starting up to business. Like if business mindset is also the same as starting up mindset, both can be similar, both can be different. But again, I think it is more of a personal question than to like I cannot really tell you how you can develop a particular business mindset, because again I don't know what your mindset is currently, right? I don't know what kind of background you're coming from. I don't really know what are the kind of skills and resources that you have access to. So uh, okay, so I think I have Varun has shared the link of Backstage with Millionaires newsletter as well as Backstage with Millionaires Hindi channel. So please go and subscribe to both these things if you have not already. And Ayush, just wanted to ask, why are you doing LLB? Like, is it passion or getting pressured by Indian parents? Like, really, man, you have such a nice journey in entrepreneurship and social work. Then why? So, Ayush, as much as I do not want it to be my personal session, but just like I think it might concern a lot of other people. So it was just like my passion, just like I said, just like you have mentioned that I have had a fairly adventurous, I have had a fairly long career. Despite being fairly young, according to Indian scenario. But yeah, it was my passion. Like I always had plans of because I was a high school dropout for almost 10 years, and I always had plans of kind of stopping what I was doing around the age of 25, like in my mid 20s, and getting back to college. And that's pretty much like what I'm doing right now. I'm pursuing law, and I have always loved learning about law and economics, and that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. So I hope that answers your question, Ayush. Thank you for bringing that up. Akash, I was wondering if there is a possibility for a startup to offer STO, security-based token offerings, to raise capital in India. So Akash, I'm not sure if I completely understand the way you can raise capital using STOs. I know that they have these iSafe notes that 1000.vc is doing, which is headed by Sanjay Mehta. But STOs is still a very new concept, or maybe it is a concept which is non-existent in India. I haven't really seen a lot of companies. I haven't really seen a lot of startups. I haven't really seen a lot of investors basically talking about it. So I don't really claim that I completely understand what you mean by this. So maybe I'll just try to skip this question, because just like I said, I do not want to answer something until and unless I'm 100% sure about it. So. Uh, Yeah, but maybe if it really depends, it really looks like a an interesting proposition. It really looks like an interesting way of raising funds, just like iSafe notes, just like a lot of other ways to raise funds, like making it less complicated than the traditional way of raising funds. So I think I'll just maybe do my own research, and maybe I'll get back to you on this in the next live. Um, okay, it's 8, and I already have people spamming. I already have people repeating the questions. So guys, just like I said, please do not repeat your questions. If this is like, if you have a question which is worth answering, if you have something which is relevant to startups and entrepreneurship, I will answer it no matter what. Like, obviously, provided that you have asked it in the said amount of time. Just like I said, it is 8:15 p.m. right now. I'll be taking all the questions which are sent to me by 8:30 p.m. So in the next 15 minutes, you can simply just send all the questions related to startups and entrepreneurship, and I will take every single of those questions. Uh, what policy reforms do you think should be implemented by the government to boost India's startup ecosystem, and what do you see some of these on the horizon? Policy reforms, Siddharth. So I think one of the biggest thing, one of the major things is obviously like how you can really make the investment easy. How you can really make the investment, like there are, I mean, investment easy by entrepreneurs in India, by entrepreneurs or investors outside India. Like obviously, if you there is no mechanism if there is a foreign national who is an angel investor wants to invest in India. I mean, there are mechanisms, there are certainly there are certainly procedures, but that takes a lot of time. So one thing is like when you're raising funds from angel investors, you are not raising millions of dollars. You're raising like few hundred, tens of thousands of dollars or a few hundred thousands of dollars. But the kind of compliances that we have, the kind of compliances that the government has issued for them, the kind of formalities that one has to go through, there are a lot of them, and that basically kind of a lot of times that kind of discourages these uh, personal angel investors to invest in Indian companies. And that is one thing which I really think should be addressed, which I really think needs to be addressed. I mean, that's one of the biggest thing, because Indian startup ecosystem is one of the biggest growing, fastest growing startup ecosystem, and I think after China, it's going to be the biggest in next 5 to 10 years, because US is another, like US is not as big of market in India, as big of market as India and China. So just like the Indian consumers, just like the Indian population, and basically the country as the digital economy of India matures in the coming in the coming years, I think it's going to be one of the biggest startup ecosystem. So I think that is one thing which the government really needs to do something about. But apart from that, just like we keep talking about tax holidays, we keep talking about taxation on angel investment in India. So the government has basically provided some sort of temporary relief to these angel investors, but there is nothing permanent. There's nothing concrete. So I think a lot of these things need to be addressed. A lot of these things still need to be there needs to be policies to govern these kind of things. So uh, let's see how much time it takes. But just like I keep saying, this is finally, we are actually talking about entrepreneurship. We are finally talking about startups. We have a startup policy in place. A lot of states are basically bringing their own startup policies. So I really think, I'm really hopeful about the startup future of India in the next 5 to 10 years, and you should also be. Varun Goyal, I have a startup idea that largely. Okay, I have already answered that. So please guide on how to launch startup. Pooja, so how to launch startup? Pooja, it is a very vague question. Like it is very broad. Please keep it to the point, and so that I can really answer. Because how to launch a startup, I can literally talk for an hour about it, and still the time will be less. So uh, yeah, I please ask something a little bit more specific. And yep, do you know anything about segregating waste from landfills? Please give me a heads up. Abhinav, no. I mean, I certainly have been following the news items. I certainly have been following the news. I certainly have been following the Ghazipur landfills in Delhi. I certainly have been following a lot of these, the kind of news items that we have. But if you really talk about the technical knowledge, if you really talk about what are the kind of things that we can segregate from that, if you really talk about what are the things that we can actually make out of that, I'm not really the best person to answer that right now, because I do not have experience with that. So how to hire developers for a startup? Darshanik, I don't know if you're talking about full-time developers. Are you talking about freelance developers? If you're talking about freelance developers, the best thing would be actually to either to go to these platforms like Upwork and Freelancer, or maybe to take references from people that you might know, people who are already doing startups, people who might also have hired a few freelancers in the past. So I think that the referencing system might still be the best, but if you do not have access to that, you can always go back to these platforms and hire few developers. If you're looking at hiring full-time developers for your team, then you can again look for references, or you can look for these portals like Naukri and Quicker Jobs, or that there are actually a lot of these platforms. So the free system might not really be the best for you, but if you take paid, the paid membership, or if you take the paid options, um, but honestly, like, I haven't had the best of experiences through these platforms. I have used a lot of them. So in all of it, I think the referencing system still works the best. So please launch a business model or case study playlist. Abrar, we are actually working on that. Uh, we did a business model just a couple of days ago, the latest video on our channel. And we, just like, I keep on saying, we are a very limited team on resources right now, but we try our level best to basically give you the maximum amount of content, to produce the maximum amount of content that we can in the uh, in the resources that are available to us. So thank you for the suggestion, and I'll try to we will try to basically live up to the kind of expectations that you have from us. uh, the D's, your thoughts on new social media and OTT regulations. So I think it is still very, very early to comment on the OTT regulations. But talking about the social media regulations, the kind of I haven't really read the complete regulations. I only read a few news reports, which were kind of a critical analysis on these, and the wordings which are being used, the wordings which are the things which basically the government of India wants these companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to segregate, or to filter out, is the one which is actually which is like, they are really not trying to suppress the criticism. They're trying to suppress the things which either might be on kind of a security breach, or kind of a security threat to the government, or it might just be personal threats to a lot of other people. So again, just like I said, I'm not 100% sure on this, so I do not really want to comment right now. But I think this is just the first time that Indian government is actually coming with some sort of regulations. These regulations will not be the final ones. Like, this is just a draft. There will be a lot of deliberation. There will be a lot of discussion on that, and I think uh, it's still a few months before the government finally comes up with the final guidelines for OTTs and social media. How to pitch idea to your friend to be your partner? Rakesh, again, please give me a little bit more detail about who your friend is. Is your friend an investor? Do you want him to be a partner, as in like a developer, a tech partner, or a business partner? What is your idea? Maybe based on that, I can give you some sort of personalized answer on that, because it is very vague. Again, if you just say that, how to pitch idea to your friend to be your partner, very, very vague. Uh, Shashi, how to reach me? Please give me my email ID or contact number. Sashi, you can reach out to us on backstagemillionaires@gmail.com. But if there's something that you think is not, you do not really want to sort of disclose, you can also reach out to me on Instagram, on Backstage with Millionaires, or Kumar Prithvi, KUNWARPRITHVI is my username on Instagram. So please reach out to me on Instagram, or reach out to Backstage with Millionaires on Instagram or email, and we can take it from there. KUNWARPRITHVI is the username. Varun, please just mention it in the chat box. Okay, yeah, Varun has already mentioned that in the comment box. So I think that answers your question, Shashi. Abhishek, best platform to get funding for an early stage Indian startup, or is it possible to ideal level or prototype level to get funding? Abhishek, everything is possible. Like, it's not that like an ideal level startup cannot get funding in India. There are, the only thing those startups, the only thing these investors, basically VCs or angel investors, whoever you're talking about, they look for before investing is whether or not there is an exit for them. Whether or not they literally, like, it is a hard fact. You might think that VCs or these investors basically look at how big of an idea is, how big are you, like, the impact of your idea. Basically, these VCs, the investors, the only thing, or maybe the biggest thing, the biggest factor they consider is what is the exit for them. what is the potential for them in this deal. So that is one thing that you really need to figure out. And yes, if I can just, if I just want to give you a few examples, Cred was a company which raised $30 million even before the world knew there was a company called Cred. So I still remember it was 2016 or 17, and there was a big news headline saying Kunal Shah raises $30 million from Shikoya Capital for his new idea. That was it. Like, so it's not that, but because this funding was done, but this Shikoya invested this kind of money based on the past credentials of Kunal Shah. So I think these are the things which you really need to take in mind. You can certainly get funding for idea level or prototype level startups. What is the best platform to get funding? In India, you have Angel or CEO, Let's Ventures mergers. In India, you also have these. So go to the websites of these VCs. Go to these websites of different angel investors. Different, or maybe the LinkedIn or Instagram profiles of these angel investors. Reach out to them. But just like I keep on saying, do not spam them. Do not simply just send an email to 1,000 VC email IDs that you get on the internet. Try to look like why will they invest in you? Have they already invested in something similar? Have they invested in something in the similar sector? Do you have those investors, angel investor, or those VCs working in the same sector? So there needs to be some sort of reason that that you are convinced that these people will invest in your company, because otherwise, like, it is just an email for them, and they do get hundreds of emails every single day. So if you cannot get their attention in the first few seconds, your email is just gone, and they will never open it again. So I think that is one thing that you really need to figure out. And I think all these email IDs that you see on the websites of these VCs, they actually work, provided you are offering them something relevant, you're offering them something worth. And I hope that answers your question. Maraver. Maraver, can I start company which give charging point for every single house? Charge will be produced in morning via solar panel and car will be charged in night like we do in mobile phone. It'll be one time. Yes, Marver, you can certainly do that. And uh, like, if I completely understand what you are saying is you just want to you want to have solar powered charging stations for the cars in every single household. So yeah, I don't really see why that should be an issue, or why this is something that cannot be implemented. Again, if you have any issues, if you think there are some sort of challenges, let's discuss about them. But yep, you can certainly do that. I mean, this really sounds like a good idea. Hey, I'm your new subscriber. Thank you, Science Ripper. I love these names. Um, Devashish, good initiative taken by you guys. Thank you for doing this. Good luck. Thank you very much, Devashish. And just like we keep on saying, this is something that uh, we have really put in a lot of efforts. This is something that we have really, really, ensured, or we have really tried to ensure that we maintain the quality, that we maintain the the value that is being generated for every single one of you. We are 131,000 people as of today. So I think that is one thing that we have really, really maintained, or at least tried to maintain from day one. And yeah, we have been fairly successful. I should say that. How do I learn business administration process? What sources would you suggest for that, Chandan? Uh, so business administration process, if you really think maybe an MBA might just be a good thing, if you really think that you are driven by the bookish knowledge, if you think that you are driven by uh, uh, personal knowledge, if you really think that you're driven by personal motivations, then maybe just going to work in a company might just be the best thing for you, or maybe working in an initial level of a startup might be a good thing for you. So again, every single person is different, and just like it is asking like whether or not you should go for an MBA or not. So this is something which is very, very subjective. This is something which is very personal, and every single person is different. I cannot simply just answer it based on the normal notion, or based on the public understanding. So I think maybe just do a pros and cons list for every single option that you have, whatever options that you have shortlisted, and by the end of that you will have your decision. Polka Dot, hi, nice to see you. Why don't companies like Infosys invest in Indian startups? They do invest in European and US startups. Polka, again, I'm not very sure on this. This is great. Like I don't know uh, I don't know the stats behind it. I don't know how many startups have they invested. Have Infosys invested in Europe, or there is. US startups, I am not really sure on that, but one of the reasons might just be that they do have a lot of their revenue coming in from those countries, and it might just be like, better for them to, but again, just like I do not want to have any assumptions, I do not just simply want to, make some wild guesses, but I'll simply just, check it out. If this is true, this is certainly a very interesting proposition. So maybe I can have an answer for you in the next live. Raz Rathod, is MBA important for business startup? Is it might be important for some people, it might not be important for some people, Raz, just like I answered it 2 minutes ago. So I think it's completely a very personal choice. It completely depends on how are you as a person, like where do you derive your value, how do you really basically yeah, what is your motivation, and how do you really learn about things? Are you a bookish person? Are you someone who understands or who learns from their personal experiences? So MBA is like this debate has been there for forever, and I think this debate is going to be there for a few more years. So yeah, I think that's all I can say about it. Shivam Nagpal, is there any future in career as a radio jockey? Certainly there is. Again, I'm not a career counselor, so I might not really be able to give you the pros and cons of that. But if you just ask in a word, I think there is a potential, there is a future in every single thing, right? It only depends on how involved, how passionate you are about that particular thing. Anything that you take, you give your full heart and soul to that, you will be successful. There is a potential in every single thing. That's all I can say. I'm having an idea. I need to find a software engineer. Where do I find it? I think I already have answered about this in the beginning of this live. Scholar me. One thing I really want to. Okay, so this is 8:31. Varun, if he has not. Okay, cutoff time. Yeah, Varun has already mentioned that. Okay. Uh, okay, let me get back to where I was. Okay, Shkolami, how can offline business survive in competition with online businesses in future? By going online, because there is certainly nothing like offline right now. If you are not online, if you are not reaching out to your customers, if you're not acquiring your customers using the way that your competitors are using, you will be dead. And that's the harsh reality of it, but that's the reality. Abhinav, how to get funding for a startup? Is there a tried and tested method? No, because in funding you are certainly, every single use case is different, every single investor is different, every single idea is different, and every single entrepreneur is different. There is no tried and tested method, because in every single of these funding deals there is money involved, there is money which is being invested by someone. So there can never be a tried and tested method in that. Every single, just like I said, every single discussion is different. Please give some ideas on how to start a space startup. Anish, like what idea do you want from me? How to start a space startup? Again, very, very vague. Please refrain from asking such kind of questions which do not, like, even if I tell you, what, do you have some sort of expertise in that? Please keep it like, as specific as you can, so that, the moment I read some question, it basically just, is there in my mind, and I can tell you something which is useful to you. Like even if I tell you how to start a space startup, what will happen with that? And this is kind of an info that I think Google can give you better than me. So I'm just trying to create value for everyone who is watching here. So please try to keep your question as specific as you can. Um, does being from IIT and NIT have an advantage in raising funds for startups? Yes, Ayush. Like it is something that I shouldn't be saying. It might just be discouraging for people who are not from IITs and NITs. But this is certainly one thing. Like it doesn't mean that people who are from any other university, they do not have, they do not have an edge in raising funds, in raising these investments. The only thing is, like, why does being from NIT or IIT really matter? Is, let's say you are from an IIT, be it any IIT, Bombay, Delhi, or Kanpur or Kharagpur. You have seniors, you have an alumni base, you have an entrepreneurship development cell, you have basically, yeah, it's all about references. And just like I was telling someone else in this live stream today, uh, most of the funding deals basically happen on references. So most of the times, like, why does, being from IITs or NITs really matter is that you really have alumni, you really have seniors or super seniors who have already been in startup ecosystem, who have already been in the startup world, who have already been working, building their own business, and they are there. If you reach out to them, you have a personal connection, you have something to connect to, that okay, hey, I'm from this department, I'm from this hostel, I'm from this IIT, and I'm your junior. So that basically gives you a common ground to connect with that entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur, in case, in return, basically ends up referencing you to someone. So I think that connection kind of thing really matters, and funding is a lot about references. So if there is, let's say you have a friend, you have a senior, or you have anyone who is in startups and entrepreneurship, who is basically a startup entrepreneur, and if he has raised funds, and if he connects, if he gives your reference to the same investor, the chances of that deal going through basically become a lot more than how they would have been if, that reference was not there. So I think that is one of the biggest, the networking part of it, the kind of connections that you really get even without being directly in contact with, your seniors or super seniors, the alumni network. I think that is one of the biggest things why a lot of people, uh, just like, people keep on saying, like, why do you really go to IIMs, why do you, because that is also giving you an MBA degree. You basically go there for exposure, you go there for alumni, you go there for connections, and that is the thing why, that is the answer, I guess, for your question that you just asked. Sam Joel, how to get customers for an agri-tech startup? Again, Sam, very very broad. Like, what do you mean an agri-tech startup? Are you selling it to the consumers? Are you selling something to the farmers? Are you a middleman? Are you a service provider? Are you a fertilizer manufacturer? Every single thing is agri-tech. Like, if you're just implementing some sort of technology in something related to agriculture. So please give me a little bit more detail about, like, what do you really mean agri-tech? When you say agri-tech, there can be a lot of things. So I've emailed you my draft business model. Thank you, Varun. I'll get in touch with you. I'll check it. If MBA, uh, Raj, I have already answered. Okay, people are discussing. Thank you. Science, sir, I have an idea to innovate in fuel cells, like selling up hydrogen grid and generation of green hydrogen. What do you think about the new national hydrogen mission by our government? I don't know. I think you had asked the same thing last time too, or I do remember someone asking me about green hydrogen. So I'm sorry, I haven't really been able to get to know a lot about it. I don't really know a lot about the alternative ways of fuel. One thing I really know is that the road transport minister Nitin Gadkari keeps on talking about there is some sort of hydro fuel that the government has made mandatory to mix in petrol. The kind of fuels that we use, that needs to be at least 10% of that fuel, but that is certainly not the green hydrogen fuel. So I am not really very well versed, so I'll refrain from answering on that because I really want to be 100% sure on something before I answer something. So so Science Ripper, maybe I can get in touch with you. Maybe you can reach out to me on Instagram or email, and I can just do a little bit of research on my part and give you a better answer, give you a more informed answer. Jelly Gomez, Jelly Gamers. Bootstrap versus funding, again, something which is very, very personal. It depends on your business model, depends on how you are as an entrepreneur, depends on whether or not you are really comfortable giving up your equity, whether or not you are gonna have uh, revenue coming in from some time. Do you really need money to scale up your business? Do you think that you have competitors which will get an advantage if you do not scale up, if you do not really get some sort of funding in the beginning? So there are a lot of these factors which basically work, which basically which you need to keep in mind, which you need to keep in consideration before starting, or before deciding whether or not going to go for funding. So just like I was answering someone else, there is no tried and tested method for starting up. There is no tried and tested method whether or not you should bootstrap or raise funds. So it completely depends on how you are as a person, how you are as an entrepreneur, and how is your business model and the kind of market that you're trying to capture. And yeah, please just make a list of the pros and cons. Write the pros and cons of both these things for your business, and you will have your answer. Ayush, I have already answered your question. What lacks any country, including India, or manufacturing passenger aeroplanes? What lacks any country? How do Airbus and Okay, so Chandan, that's an interesting question. The only thing is, I keep saying a lot of times, like talking about manufacturing, manufacturing anything, even if you talk about gadgets, even if you talk about, let's say, semiconductors, even if you talk about cotton, if you talk about anything, basically building a manufacturing facility or creating a manufacturing uh, ecosystem basically needs a lot of time, a lot of efforts from the government. It needs a lot of time to basically mature. And a lot of us basically talk about the ecosystem, the manufacturing ecosystem in China. China is the biggest manufacturer in the world, but you need to keep in mind, you need to consider that. I'm sorry. So yeah, you need to consider that China basically started taking these initiatives back in 1960s and 70s, right after the war that was happening, the India-China war. So China has taken all these 30, 40 years to basically give the world the kind of manufacturing powerhouse that it has become. And a lot of these things basically, the government of India, Make in India was first introduced in India in 2015 or 2016, right? So that was the first time that an Indian government was talking about, uh, manufacturing, or basically talking about taking manufacturing seriously. So these are the things which you really need to ensure. These are the things that a lot of things go into manufacturing anything. So you cannot simply just compare with Airbus and Boeing, because you certainly, like, more than what to manufacture, you need to figure out like why and how to manufacture. Prasoon Ingle, what are your thoughts on basic financial education for young students, and Indian parents are not much open about it? Okay, so this is one thing that a lot of people have actually been talking about. This is something that a lot of us, we really, really need basic financial literacy. And what is my thought? So what I really think, Prasoon, is like I think it should be a mandatory part of our syllabus in the high school at least, if not in middle school. And every single person does need to understand about financial literacy, personal finance, investing as a part of it, because we, like, Indians are traditionally known for savings, but I see the newer generation, which is like, even though we were not very financially secure, we were not financially very, very literate. Our parents, or basically the generations before us, they have been very, very, what do I say? Like, they have basically been considerate on savings. Like, Indians are known about saving money. So I think that is one thing that, but I think there needs to be there needs to be a mandatory syllabus. There needs to be mandatory education on financial literacy. And I think it's just about time that the Indian parents will be open about it. How to attract people to work at my startup? Like, why would they risk to work with a company who has no credibility? So Snehil, I think that is one thing that you need to sort of put into their minds, that when the in the beginning, when you are hiring your employees, when you are hiring your first employee, when you are hiring your first team, do not try to give them a sense of thought. Do not try to sort of tell them that you are hiring employees. Try to basically come up with something that, okay, you are not hiring employees, you are hiring partners, you are hiring people who will not work for you, who will work with you, because that's the first time that you are hiring some some employees, and those are the employees which will basically make or break the kind of fortune that your company might have. So I think that is one thing which a lot of us do not really figure out, because if you're just a one person team, or you're just two people team, and if you try to that is one thing that, again, it basically depends on the understanding between you or your employees, you and your customers, or whoever is being involved, whoever is involved in your startup at that point of time. But I think that might just be one of those things. Give them some sort of sense of responsibility, give them some sense of ownership. And that is another thing why ESOPs, if you're talking about startups, if you're talking about a new company, a lot of these things which are basically there to keep the trust of your employees, or keep the trust of your partners, or the first few employees in your startup. Yogesh, yeah. So Yogesh is asking, why does not India uh, manufacture ICs in India like AMD and Intel? So Yogesh, I think I have just answered that. That India really needs a lot of development in that sector. India needs a lot of initiatives and the policies from the government side. And finally, we are finally the government has started taking those decisions. The Indian government has finally started taking those initiatives and those steps. So I think yeah, should happen in the coming uh, days, or I mean coming years. Do you think blockchain technology will boost investments in India by making it easy for foreign investment? Akash, I think more or less investments in India are still like depend on the kind of policies that the governments have. Blockchain will certainly pave way for the kind of technical innovations which are happening in India. Blockchain will certainly have like will give you a lot of opportunities to raise funds, but whether or not that investment is happening in India, that will I think depend on the policies of the government. Trip to manage my first team, Rakesh, I think I already answered that. I have a startup idea, but I don't have any resources for funding anyone to guide what to do. I'm just 21. So Marvar, if you really think that getting funding is the only thing which is stopping you from from making your startup succeed, you might just be wrong on that, because again, please answer the question for yourself, that why will someone invest in you? If you are just 21, if you have no prior experience, if you just have an idea in itself has no value, no financial or monetary value. The only thing which depends is how are you as a person, how experienced you are, what was the kind of team that you have, what is the kind of experience that you have, or what is the unique thing about you that people should invest in your company. So I think a lot of these things need to be answered before you even reach out to any of these investors. And one thing I can tell you, you are 21 or 41 does not matter. The only thing which matters is the kind of zeal that you have, the kind of experience that you have, the kind of convincing power that you have to convince these investors to invest in your company. So just figure that out, and I think it might just be Scholar Me, so please give me some tips to stay connected with consistent learning of startup related knowledge. So Scholar Me, I think one of the best things is to remain updated with what are the kind of sectors which are being worked on, what are the companies which are raising funds, what are the companies, like what are the biggest, what are the most interesting, and what are the most breakthrough technologies which are being there, which are being launched in the market, what are the different startups working on, what are new unicorns, what are the, basically just keep updated, keep yourself updated with the news. And whichever thing that interests you, which are the sectors which interest you, maybe do a little bit more deep research about them. And these are the things which I think will give you more and more knowledge. These are the things which will give you a lot more of these. I think yeah, that's one thing that you can really do to stay connected with the consistent learning of startup related ecosystem. Shubham, I'm investing in USA market. Can you suggest alternatives of Tesla working in same industry and any other industry you'll suggest? Cannabis industry is being legalized and growing. So you're investing in USA market. Can I suggest some alternatives of Tesla? So again, Shubham, I'm not very sure on, I'm not really very experienced or not very well versed with the US market and the stocks and, the alternatives on that. If you're talking about India, there are a lot more, I can maybe give you a little bit of points about it. But just like I said, I really want to make it uh, very much on the startups and entrepreneurship. Like we are not talking about the stocks, we are not talking about stock recommendations right now. So I'll have to skip your question. Um, Kaljang, I'm just 18 and I think I have a solid business idea and I think I can go do great, but my parents don't listen to me. Uh, Kaljang, I think every single person does have that thing. Every single student, if you talk about, and every single teenager has that kind of mind, that kind of thought process that we can do everything. We have amazing ideas, we have amazing talent, we have great amount of skill set. But why do you think, like, why will your parents not listen to you? Uh, Again, maybe reach out to me with an email, maybe reach out to me on Instagram and let's talk. Maybe I can give you a little bit of detail about how my journey was convincing my parents. And yeah, I think that's all I can say right now. Let's talk if there is something which is interesting that you are doing it. Is it okay for outsource the tech aspect of a business in the initial phase of a startup to shorten the go-to-market time, and should we build it ourselves? Yes, Varun, it is perfectly fine for you to outsource the technology in the beginning phase, because that kind of gives you that kind of gives you an option to invest your time in business. That basically gives you an option, or that basically gives you ample amount of time to invest in user acquisition and things. Like, if you're not a technical person, if you're a technical person, I think you should really oversee that. But if you're more of a management person, if you're more of a business person, if you're more of a user acquisition person, then I think it makes complete sense, maybe just to have an MVP, have a prototype outsourced, so that you can uh, focus on other things in your startup journey. Itihas, what exactly entrepreneur mean? So, well, that's actually interesting. I don't know if I can give you the bookish definition of an entrepreneur, itihas, but in my understanding, in my limited knowledge, or limited amount of experience that I have, an entrepreneur is something who basically uh, takes an initiative to build a business opportunity, to build a business, and tries to make uh, tries to do something better with any issue or any problem that is out there. How do you start research while starting with Backstage with Millionaires and find news? So, Hriday, I think Varun is the perfect person to answer that. But just like uh, we cannot really do like two-way live streams right now. But when we started Backstage with Millionaires, we were more or less like we were an interview. Uh, we were basically doing interviews where we did not really need to do a lot of research. So me and Caleb were just going to these entrepreneurs. After a bit of time, Caleb was the only person who was going to these entrepreneurs, and we were doing these interviews, which did not mean a lot of this research. But since we started doing these case studies, since we started doing these news items, Varun has been the one who is taking care of the research and content part. So I think he'll be the perfect person to answer that. And uh, maybe, yeah, you will have that chance to ask Varun someday, very soon. Ayush, I do not want to just get into these politics. I know you have asked a few things related to politics and the Modi government, so maybe I'll just skip, because just like I keep saying, we I try to keep it very limited. I try to keep it perfectly on startups and entrepreneurship. So if there is anything which is not relevant to that, I'll skip that. I'm sorry for that. Srinivasan, do you think there are room for hedge funds in India? Small kid. Okay. Thank you for mentioning your name. So Srinivasan, there is certainly, just like I said, India, the economy of India, the way that we do business in India is still not as mature as it is in the Western market. So there is certainly room for hedge funds in India, but the compliances, the policies which are governing them, I think they need to be matured first. I think the government needs to do a little bit more work on those policies. But now that finally the government is talking about funds, talking about the startups and a lot of these things, I think we will see a lot of a breakthrough in that segment in the coming time. Um, how can one approach VCs for funding if you have no contacts? Shabar, just like I said in the beginning, go to the websites of these VCs. You do not need to have contacts. You need to have a solid business plan. You need to send them an email with a proper, basically a proper subject line and a proper. So they will get less than 30 seconds to a minute to read your email. And if you can convince them to read your email further, if you can convince them to basically check out your pitch deck in those 30 seconds, you are good. Otherwise, no, please do not spam them. Do not just take a list of, just take a list of 100 or 1,000 VCs and just send an email to every single person. Every single time, send personalized emails to these VCs. Tell them why they should invest in you, why should they partner with you, what is the exit plan, what is your business like, why are you the best person to build this business, why are you the best person to partner with them. So do a little bit of research on every single VC that you are reaching out to. Do a little bit of research on every single company that you're reaching out to, every single, or that portfolio companies. Write an email that they actually feel compelled to read it, and once they read it, they feel compelled to reply to you. Focus on that, and yeah, you'll be fine. Dheeraj, I'm 15 years old. How to learn startups and business? Dheeraj, internet is your best buddy. YouTube and Google. There are a lot of websites which basically give you latest startup news. There are a lot of these. Uh, um, there are a lot of these YouTube channels like Backstage with Millionaires where you can get a lot of good knowledge about startups and business. So I think that will be a good thing for you to begin with. That will be, or maybe just have some of your just have a list of the people, just have a list of these websites, a list of these books that you really think are interesting to you. Keep following them. Follow some of the sectors that you think are really interesting to you. Follow some of the entrepreneurs, read their interviews, listen to their podcast, read the books about it. And I think, yeah, do not put yourself in unnecessary pressure if you're only 15, because learning curve needs to be natural. Like, you cannot force learning on yourself. Keep that in mind, and good luck. Upendra, your content is good. Felt it's neat. Thank you very much, Upendra, for that. Uh, Vaibhav, good evening. The college which has incubator center and entrepreneur club in IITs and NITs is good, or we can say sufficient to emerge as a student entrepreneur. Yes, they're perfectly, like, again, something is better than nothing, right? So I think this is a good beginning from these NITs and IITs. But and also, like, it's not about NITs. There are a lot of private universities also have these incubators and like these incubation programs. So I think this is a good beginning. It might still be a little bit of time before these things get matured. It might still be a little bit of time before India finally, the student community of India, or the education system of India basically starts celebrating entrepreneurship and startups. But till then, just like I said, something is better than nothing. Ayush is getting a little emotional with his political comments. Ayush, I'm sorry. Just like I said, I cannot really take these political, because I did not really want to turn this discussion into that. So, guys, I think I reached the cutoff time, but I still have 5 minutes, so I'll maybe just take three, four more questions. Uh, um, Sir, I have a business idea, created revenue model, and created by Business Canvas, but I want a willing tech co-founder, as my idea is a lot tech savvy. How to get and how to manage funds, please. Uh, so, Kshitiz, your first answer is uh, you want a willing tech co-founder. So I think, one, maybe, break your question, maybe break your startup journey in like two, three different things. First, have a co-founder. First have someone who understands your vision. First have someone who understands the idea, that the product that you're building. Figure out whether or not that person can really be the person that you are looking for. Whether or not he can take responsibility, whether or not he can be involved in your startup as much as you are. Once you have that, once you have a team, once you have someone to basically build that for you, then look for the other things. Look for funds, look for yeah, I think, first figure out one thing and then go to the second thing. How to get funding for adventure project in Himachal Pradesh? Rajat, again, what is an adventure project for you? uh, Funding, I think, this seems like a very traditional way of business. So the maybe VCs or these angel investors might not really be the best person to, for you to reach out to. The best thing, I think, you can do is reach out to the people, the local businessmen, because one, they will know you. Second, they will know the adventure project that you're talking about. They will know about the tourism and, the scope of these things in Himachal. And the third thing is they'll be much more willing to do that in their own state, in their own locality. So I think the best thing for you would be to reach out to these big business people who you think have deep pockets, and can invest in your, maybe make use of your connections, make use of your relatives or your friends. Reach out to these people, and that might just be a good beginning for you. Are you working on a startup, Shakti, or you on startup, or you own startup idea? If yes, what is that? Um, Shakti, I don't know why you think that Backstage with Millionaires is not a startup. So this is something that I'm really working on. And apart from that, I'm a law student, just like I keep mentioning a lot of times. So that is another full-time commitment that I have right now. How do you connect with startup founders and get them to interview on your channel, Shabar? So we basically reach out. We do cold emailing every single time. We do also reach out to them through references, like the startup founders that we have already interviewed. So we reach out to different people. We basically ask them to connect us with some potential, people that we can interview. So referencing is something that really works well. We also reach out to them directly. There are times when people reach out to us. So it's just like a mechanism. It just works out. Um, okay, so I will three more questions. If you're starting a B2C business, what kind of surveys do you do? How do you approach customers and suppliers initially? So, Nikhil, again, when you're talking about a B2C business, I think the best thing would be to understand or to watch some of Kunal Shah's interview. When he was doing free charge, when he was starting free charge, he really did a lot of these surveys. He is like he's known for surveys, and he's known for just like how he has built cred. So just watch some of his interviews talking about how he built free charge in the beginning, and you will get a really good really good idea on how to reach out to people, how to have your first few customers, and how to do surveys. How can non-IITian get funding? Sanju Reddy, just like IITians get. The only thing is they have a reference. And like apart from that, there is no difference in how you just reach out to angel investors, just reach out to VCs, and I've answered that at least 2 times in this live stream. So Sriyam Gaming, what is the future of hydrogen fuel vehicle? Just like I said in the beginning of this, I'm not very uh, well versed with what hydrogen fuel is. So I will certainly do the research on my part and be ready for this answer for this question in the next live stream. Okay, so hey guys, I've been following your channel for a while, interested to know about your background, how you ended building a YouTube channel on an Indian ecosystem, also 21. Aditya, we have a video called the journey of Backstage with Millionaires when we did our 10K, when we reached our 10K milestone. If you just go to our channel, that is a featured video. So go there and watch that, and you will know about the background, you will know about the journey of Backstage with Millionaires. And yeah, I think that'll be the. Yes, Varun has mentioned that in the chat box. And yep, I think guys, that's a good note to end this live stream at. Thank you very much for turning up on this Friday evening. It was really great interacting with every single of you. Just like I keep saying every single time, that this is one of the best parts of my week, interacting with the every single of you. I know the kind of questions that we get. Obviously, there are some sort of challenges that are there every time, but the kind of discussions that we have, and this is one reason which really, this is one platform which gives me a chance to reach out to you and to interact with you people. So thank you very much for making it yet another interesting session, for turning up on Friday evening. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you with one more live stream next week, Friday 8 o'clock. Thank you very much. Have a good night.